Welcome to Journey Now, a podcast about following Jesus that takes on serious issues without ever taking itself too seriously. Each week, the pastors, staff, and friends of Journey Church in Brentwood, Tennessee gather to catch up, share life together, laugh a little, okay, a lot, maybe too much, but along the way, they also explore what it really means to bring heaven to earth, share Jesus' hospitality, and live cross-shaped lives. Part babble, part Bible, and occasionally even thoughtful and entertaining, this is Journey Now.
Yes, okay. Suzie wants to. Oh. Okay, all right, I got a new intro.
You got a new intro?
I do. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we recorded a 15-minute podcast.
That was worthless.
It was not worthless.
No, that was the funniest one we've ever done.
It was not.
I mean, it is
You're
so...
all fired. You're all fired.
I am so hot.
Yes,
I am so hot.
Yes,
you are.
Yep.
Yes, you are.
So
Wow.
welcome to another Journey Now podcast. We actually tried. We did a segment.
Terrible.
We did a segment on how hard Mother's Day is on dads.
Yeah.
That didn't go very well.
No.
Shockingly.
It got dark.
Kevin shared.
I thought the bit on the grain-free tortilla chips
we
wasn't
tried
half
a
bad.
grain-free tortilla chip, which was
I
horrific.
still tried to figure that out.
Totally. And then Kevin told us about a game where you throw knives at each other called mumbletypeg.
Yeah. So if anybody played that game,
Yeah.
please
Yes.
let us know.
Yes.
Write in.
Yes.
And I want to see the scars on your feet.
Yes.
I
Exactly
feel
right.
like there's more scars on you involved in this whole mumbly
Oh, I have
situation.
one. I definitely have one.
Kevin has tears.
Oh, that was so funny.
Yeah, we had a totally unairable
Yeah.
segment that
Imagine that. Imagine
well,
that.
imagine we edited ourselves.
Yeah.
That's how
Grant,
egregious.
don't worry, we got this.
Wow.
Yeah, Grant,
We got
we did
this.
it ourselves.
We
Grant,
got
we're
it.
growing up.
I think it is perfectly fine to put out.
Yeah.
But that's fine.
Yeah.
People are going to ask us for it.
Yeah. Oh my
Oh,
goodness. Yep.
Oh, Lord.
I'm not even gonna. Yep. So anyway, we're here.
Yes.
And we had a very special Mother's Day message on
Yes.
Children of Hell.
Yes.
And that was great.
That was really good.
That was really
It
good.
was
Very fitting.
yeah.
For the moms in the room who have a bad experience with their children. We were doing the woes, and I know.
Woe is you.
Whoa, no.
Woe to the
I
Pharisees.
think that may have been one of the funniest lines I've ever had in my life. And the fact is, only 5 of us will ever hear it.
I don't know. That was recorded.
Might find its way back
that might
out.
show up at your
But it
retirement
needs
party.
the whole 15 minutes
Yeah.
set up. That's the problem.
It does. You need. It leads up to that moment.
Yes.
Sorry, people.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
This is like when
Brad,
everybody's talking
I will
about a
tell
show.
you. Brad, I will tell. Text me, Brad. I will explain it to you. What were you saying, Tim?
No, I was just gonna say this is like when somebody's like, "Oh, have you seen Parks and Rec?" And
Yeah.
everybody goes into how funny it is. I'm like, "No, but I haven't seen it yet."
No, I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
What is? All right, I got a question for us
Have you
before
seen
we dive in.
Parks and Rec?
Yeah. I have
Oh,
seen it.
okay.
What is? We did this at the non-friends. What is your hot? Give me a hot
Oh,
take that you
karaoke.
have.
What's your karaoke song?
Yeah, no one ever
We've already
asked
done that.
What would you want played at your funeral? No, we did what's the thing that you hate that everybody loves, or the thing that you love that everybody hates? So, for instance, okay, no, you have one.
Yeah.
Go.
Friends. The show Friends.
Okay, hate it,
Really?
love it.
Yeah. Hate it.
Yeah.
Have you always hated it?
Yeah. Everybody else loves it.
Can I say I've never watched 1 minute of one episode of that entire show?
You're
Really?
a better
I couldn't
man.
even
Where were you
identify.
doing must-see TV?
I could.
Thursday nights?
Reading the
RCT?
Bible, obvi.
Yeah. Fasting,
Here we go.
Praying. Yeah, I didn't think it was must see TV.
Did you watch ER?
No,
Huh.
not one episode ever. I will if you throw out like Scooby Doo, all in.
Wow. That
As a
That's
kid.
a different show.
yeah, I don't know if I would have admitted
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
That's fine.
That's fine.
What about you guys?
That's a good one. I hate coffee. I hate coffee breath. I hate coffee cake. I hate coffee. Just
That
hate.
is a hot take.
That is
Yeah.
a hot take.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone.
Do you like coffee ice cream?
No. Nope. Just hate the flavor. Love it. Love coffee drinkers. Hate coffee.
Wow. It's like love the sin. Love,
They hate
love
the
the sin.
sin.
Right?
Yeah. That's perfect. All right, Suzie Lynn.
I don't know. I don't even think I answered this at the non-friends because I don't know. I can't think of something.
I'm pretty sure it's miscongeniality. I love that movie. Everybody else seems to not.
Oh no, I like that movie.
It's cute, but you do have it. You have a disproportionate affection.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
I
for that
agree.
movie.
It's not on brand. That's why it's
Yeah,
it's
it's
always
serious.
Yeah.
Perfect.
It's not on brand for who?
for you.
Yeah, for you.
Oh.
Like,
Yeah.
It's not the movie that, like, if someone was like just gonna guess what's your favorite movie,
Yeah.
that would not be
Yeah.
it.
No.
Yeah.
Deliverance.
It'd be
is
like
what I would
Dirty Harry or something.
Yeah,
Dirty
yeah,
Harry.
Yeah,
Oh, nice.
yeah.
Oh, that's classic.
Yeah, but Sweet Home Alabama and Miss Congeniality.
Yeah.
don't
Not it.
really.
We didn't see that coming.
No.
All right.
Yeah. How about you, Kev? Hot take.
That was it. I thought.
Oh, Miss Congeniality.
It's not it. I don't like grain-free tortilla chips.
Oh,
and
I thought you
apparently-
pointed at Edwin.
No, I like.
I don't like Edwin.
I like Edwin, but I was
Okay.
talking about the grain-free.
Yeah, we had a whole taste segment where we tried gluten-free, flavor-free.
Which is going to be our next show.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's Journey on My Mind.
Grain-free
It's-
version.
Journey on my
what's our-
stomach.
Yeah. Journey.
No,
Taste
maybe
buds.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
No, going nowhere.
I got
Okay,
nothing.
back to Children of
This
Hell.
is- let's see. Yes.
So we were talking about how bad religion starts with bad evangelism. Oh,
Yes, this is true.
and I did not lack for any shortage of personal examples of
Those were funny.
yes, yeah,
The one where you're at the beach doing
Yes.
slow motion football.
yes,
Yes.
that
yeah,
brought
I mocked
back
you.
memories.
There. Sorry about that.
yeah, but that's okay.
It was a good follow-up from your message the week before,
Yeah.
talking about that experience you had. Yeah.
Right. Campus ministries.
Yeah, and
There's a place for them.
There is
absolutely, and the world in some ways was a lot different.
Yeah.
And
a lot different.
yeah, but even then, if that's the best we got is
Slow motion football.
well, and the awkward sort of conversations that would result from that, and people feeling pressured or whatever. Just not, like, I personally love the evangelistic impulse to want people to find Jesus, to want people to be healed by Jesus, to experience what I've experienced. I totally want that for people, but I've just found on both sides of it, the evangelist E and the evangelist Erre, that so often the dynamics that get set up or set in motion in those sorts of conversations are things that really obscure how beautiful Jesus turns out to be. And so for the Pharisees, and again, I mean, it's so important, and it's important to say here, when we're talking about the Pharisees, we're not talking about all of Judaism. We're not even talking about all the Pharisees.
Right.
We're talking about a subset of a subset that Jesus is prophetically speaking against. Very often, people will read critiques that Jesus makes about the Pharisees and somehow come to the conclusion that Judaism itself was the issue. Jesus was a Torah observant
Is that the
Jew.
root of a lot of anti-Semitic
Absolutely.
stuff?
These woes have been
Yeah.
used and employed. I mean, the crucifixion stories,
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing. And so Amy Jo Levine, who teaches at Vanderbilt, wonderful, wonderful Jewish New Testament scholar, not Messianic Jewish, but like she's
awesome.
She is awesome. She just has this great line, and it's so true. You don't have to make Jesus look good by making Judaism look bad.
Right.
Because Jesus didn't. Jesus was not correcting Judaism. Jesus was correcting, in the same way, if he came today, he
Abuses.
would not. Yeah, he would be correcting abuses of Christianity. He would not be correcting the idea that somehow we shouldn't be following him.
Okay, so going back to the whole evangelism thing, from what years were those, would you say, that you were kind of you had in mind? Like 80s and 90s?
Yeah.
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 Do you think, like,
For sure.
I mean, is it a no duh? Is it like what we're seeing today, what we're experiencing today in terms of how people think of the Christian community that are not part of it? Do you think that that's the fruit of that type
Bad
of evangelism of the day? I mean, like, it was very common, like the campus ministry stuff, the tracks, the walking around the mall, asking people if they knew where they were going to go, if they were to die tonight.
Right.
Like,
there
that was the water.
There was literally a group at our campus that had a coffin and would walk around with somebody in the coffin and ask people.
Well, there were all kinds of things like that. There were all kinds of skits that we could all talk about that made its way through every youth group of the time. There was
crazy.
the Heaven's Gates, Hell's Flames movie
Whoa.
thing
Whoa.
that people showed. I
Right.
mean, there was a lot of that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
right? And you listed all the things, the traits of bad evangelism that we all participated in,
Yeah.
by the way.
Totally.
And so now here we are in 2024,
Oof.
right? And there's a caricature, if you will, of evangelical Christians out there for some people. There are things we are known for now that are not really what we would like to be known for.
Correct.
So do you think, like, how much do you think that played into what we're seeing today? And that's a blanket statement. I realize. I know that there's a lot of people trying their best and being faithful to Christianity. I mean, the church is alive and well. But I just wonder what
there's still pockets that still do it. I mean, it's not like it's gone. It's still there. It's still very prevalent. It's still part of many people's faith journey is that they hand out tracts. They tell people about hell. They bring people to crusades or revival tent meetings. It's still out there. It's still it's ingrained in our culture in many ways.
The theology, though, I mean,
it's a theology.
Based
it's based on a theology that says that the story, and this is one thing I appreciate Mike says a lot, is that the story is about heaven and hell. That's the theology of that, whereas the Bible is more talking about the heaven and earth and bringing those together, and which is helpful. That's a helpful shift in thinking for people, but they don't think that way. So I would say the heaven-hell narrative is still very prevalent. I don't think it's gone away. I also think back in the day, back in the 70s and 80s, that the culture in general was more biblically literate. They maybe wrong literate, but they knew more about the Bible. They had actually engaged with it in some level because they went to Sunday school or they knew somebody or whatever. I think today it's far less prevalent that people have a good
biblical literacy.
Well, and it's not just that they're neutral or unknowing. It's that they see it as harmful.
It's rejected.
Yes. So the same way that religious people have tried to cast out demons, I think there are non-religious people trying to cast out the demons of religiousness because of how harmful it is. And so to your, to Kevin's point and to your question, absolutely. Both in the method and in what we were evangelizing people to, we have malformed. We have been malformed, and we are malforming, and that's Jesus's critique of the Pharisees. And so it's not just that the methods we used were not organic and Jesus centric or even following his example, not always. But it's that what we evangelized people to was a transaction that you make in your heart that it doesn't have anything to do with your real life, that gets you out of hell and is fear-based almost exclusively. So it's not shockingly that fear-basedness still really sells religious people, right? All I have to do is keep religious people afraid, and they'll do about anything.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
But it just also feels like it was a very shallow Christianity that we were formed by.
Well, it didn't require discipleship. All it was it ended at the prayer.
Right.
And instead of began. Right? So totally. I mean,
and then church.
Just to launch into one of the questions that we got on the text line is that what is salvation then?
Oh.
That was the question that came. I threw it out there in the 9 o'clock, and you kind of like, no, on to the next one. But we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Now.
No,
so I mean, it's a different question than what is evangelism.
But it fits because if salvation is just a prayer that you pray to get out of hell, then we were evangelizing perfectly to that end.
Yes, we were evangelizing to that end. Yes,
absolutely. But if salvation is more than that,
or different than that,
right? Then we're evangelizing in ways that are shallow, but also they actually obscure. They're getting in the way of what salvation actually turns out to be. So one of my favorite theologians defines salvation, and I've tried to figure out a problem I have with it.
Yeah.
But it's
his name's mumbletypeg,
which, by the way, I quoted a guy named Dutch Sheets. Yeah. And I didn't want to say sitting Shiva.
Yeah.
But my new one today is Dutch Sheets.
Yeah.
Dutch Sheets.
Very
Dutch
good.
sheets.
That's it.
All right. So anyway, I got a text from Brad. He's like, "Sitting Shiva is the greatest intro in the history of the world." And it's like, yep, it was good.
Yeah.
Dutch sheets though.
I don't know.
That's a great second.
Yeah.
That's a great second. All
Very
right.
interesting character, that guy.
Well, I don't know anything
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
I just took a quote from a guy named
Yeah.
John Tyson.
Yeah.
Someone texted in, that's Dutch sheets.
Yep.
And there it was. And then you guys said, "Oh, there's this whole thing around
Yeah.
Dutch sheets."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very meticulous here in
Yeah.
Dutch
Yep.
sheets.
Yep.
He's gotten a lot of play on this podcast so far.
Yeah.
Dutch
Yeah.
sheets.
Yep.
So anyway, it could be a band name, could be
Yeah,
a
yeah,
person
yeah.
name.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
He's
It
going to
is.
have a Google alert set up. On
Yes.
his name, probably.
So no, it's not mumbletypeg or Dutch sheets.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's a guy named Matthew Bates who says salvation is embodied participation in new creation.
Ooh, I like
Say it again.
And
Embodied.
Embodied. So embodied as opposed to floaty
Yep.
somewhere else.
Yeah, embodied.
Participation, meaning we're reigning and ruling, just like Genesis
Yep.
begins and Revelation ends.
It's a faith activity.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. It's allegiance.
Yep.
It's like bodily. Like you show allegiance to Jesus through your body, not in your heart. And then
embodied participation.
yep, in new creation.
I like
And
that.
so the Bible ends with God creating. Now, he's not starting from scratch and torching everything that came before, but it's recreating. We've talked a lot about this.
Light it up.
Yeah, and so yeah, exactly. I mean, and again, if you think this is a sinking ship and all that Jesus is going to do is pull souls out
Right,
of here,
right.
then we evangelize totally appropriately for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But if the world, if it is the story of heaven and earth, and then being rejoined, as Revelation 21 and 22
Talks
says,
about, yeah.
then, and then, so I love that definition. And then Bates, makes the obvious jump to new creation starts now. And so, when Paul talks about
Process of
Second
new creation.
Corinthians, absolutely.
Yep.
2 Corinthians. If anyone is in Christ, new creation has come. And
The old has passed away.
yeah, exactly. But that's exactly what Paul's announcing has happened in Jesus. The new creation that we expected at the end of the age was launched when Jesus rose from the dead and created a new value system that's the upside down version of what we call normal. And then through bodily participation in the resurrected community filled by the Spirit, we now bear witness to, participate in, and anticipate new creation realities.
Which then makes sense why Paul would use language like working out your salvation with fear and
Yeah,
trembling.
Right. And language of you have been saved,
Yeah.
you are being saved, and you will be
Yeah.
saved to describe the same reality.
And that you're saved too.
Exactly. So,
Something.
yeah, exactly. So hell, if you use the word hell to describe the reality of fallen human systems and the participation of those systems in the powers and the principalities,
And railroad
I'm
workers.
all for that. Like for saying this sucks. This whole thing sucks. There's got to be a better world out there. Like I think that's a fine use of the Gehenna image that Jesus employed all over the place. But the threat of God loves you so much he's going to torture you unless you say yes to Jesus, man, I just don't see that. I
Okay,
don't see
so
that.
you said earlier that
Who's the you?
Kevin,
Oh,
Okay. Yes.
that
Good.
people
Good.
were more
Uh-oh.
biblically literate. They knew their Bibles more. And yet this is the theology that came out of that time.
yeah.
So that doesn't, to me, that doesn't make sense. Because if they, I mean, we're reading those same Bibles. We're teaching out of those same Bibles. And so how did that happen?
Yeah, Kevin.
And then what are
your
what are people
generation,
going to be?
boomer.
This is why I'm asking the question: is what are people
unfortunately.
going to be saying about us 20 years from now?
yeah.
Like, how are we malforming people?
Everything's a reaction to the previous, right? And I think a lot of what I was born into was building on the shoulders of theologians that were convinced in no uncertain terms that Jesus was returning by the year 2000, that the urgency of the gospel became how do we manage this thing in such a way that it's expedited. We want to expedite the gospel. And so it got McDonald. it got bite-sized, it got fast-fooded, it got practical.
Efficient.
Yes. And something you could do in an elevator. Like you could have a conversation in an elevator and present the gospel. Like I was taught how to do it in 5 minutes, how to explain the gospel in 5 minutes or less. And so with that became this urgency, I think, that was packed into the wrong belief of how the earth plays out. And with that, people stopped asking questions about the story of Jesus and just asked questions about how do you escape hell. And it moved into a totally different conversation. Yeah. And I lived in a house where, I went to church every Sunday, every Wednesday. I was there all the time. And in that, my dad was constantly correcting what the pastor would say on Sunday to fit the narrative that he wanted. And so there was a degree of a lot of confusion and a lot of fear. And in that fear I was pretty sure I was going to hell. I was pretty sure most of my childhood I was going to hell. So I had to survive.
There's still questions.
Yes, well, for sure. But that hell was a very, very, very real threat. And a very, very real, deep-seated fear that, and to the point where, the movies and all the things that taught me that the end of the world was coming got me to the point where I was pretty sure I was going to miss that. And so I was paying attention to the fact that I was going to miss it, which doesn't bode well for abundant living. Doesn't bode well for a relationship with God. There's no salvation in it whatsoever. There's no sense of relief. There's no sense. There's just like
there's no peace.
There's no peace. There's no, and so how we got there was, I think it was well-intentioned people acting on bad theology of urgency that reduced the gospel to a transaction. That's how I think we got there. I could be wrong.
I think the 20-year question is interesting because there used to be a way, like a diagram. If you had a napkin, you could diagram the message of Jesus. It was called the bridge. And so you would draw,
for sure.
You would draw one side, and then there was this big chasm, and then there was this other side. So one side had God on it, and then there was this big empty space, and then there was you or me or people. And so that gap was called sin. And the big point was, listen, you could try to jump on your own, but even the world record holder.
Yeah, I remember that.
Could only make it.
Carl Lewis.
Yeah, Carl Lewis.
Oh, there's a poll. There's a poll.
So God sent
Ben Johnson on steroids.
And then you draw kind of a cross that presents a bridge, and this is the way God allows. One of the things that I think
with verses attached to each side.
Oh, heck yeah.
Until John Piper said that God is not a bridge builder.
Awesome.
Then
Thanks,
it
John.
just blew the whole thing out of
thanks,
the water.
John. Now I'm really going to hell because there's no bridge.
So I think one of the things that's true that didn't used to be true is let's say that's an accurate representation, which we're not saying, but that there are other chasms that have to be overcome before you even get to the talking about Jesus point. So if you picture like God all the way across 3 or 4 valleys, and humanity over here across the same 3 or 4. The work we have to do to even gain a hearing, because one of the big changes was that Christianity was generally well regarded. Even if you didn't buy it, it was still seen
respected
as a force for good.
Totally. Yeah.
And with good reason. I think the majority of people don't hold that view anymore. So the way we're going to get critiqued is the cultural work that we're trying to figure out how to do in order to even get Jesus a hearing. So if we lead with statements about, LGBTQ people or race or whatever, we're just adding to the separation. And so when we make choices to not have those statements be the lead piece in our conversation, I think there are other, and I've heard this from younger pastors that are like, you should have something. People are going, people are really like poorly taught on this issue. And my objection is, no doubt. But Jesus never took the requirements of what it meant to follow him and made those the requirements for what it meant to believe in him initially.
Right.
And so I just think the critique on us will be all of the cultural work we've tried to do around sexuality and race and just politics to even get a hearing for Jesus. You know what I mean? So because there's repair that has to be done. So I think that's where we'll get critiqued, is the repairing was either too hard, too soft. It could be both. I don't know.
Well, and the crazy thing is that we're talking about, I mean, we're sure, like you're describing getting Jesus a hearing with people who have not heard and who are not.
Or who have heard.
But that's what I know. That's the part
evil.
that I'm saying is crazy, is that you have this whole generation of people who have grown up in it.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you evangelize people who have grown up hearing it?
Yeah, and have said, this is awful.
Yeah.
Exactly. It wasn't that they heard it and accepted it and walked away.
Right.
It was, oh, this hurts.
Yeah.
You don't accept my friends?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a deal breaker. I mean, my kids, 18, 20, your kids,
My kids.
like if you just led with, gay people aren't welcome in our church, you're done.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that's the reason that you then say, well, yeah, of course, gay people are welcome in our church so that the kids aren't offended.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is, in 20 years, the critique against us will be, hey, you repaired too much, too little, too heavy, too softly. And because we don't know. We don't know the best way to do this right now.
Right.
I don't agree.
I think it's a moving target too.
Absolutely. And cultural attitudes are changing so rapidly. You know, it's like Kevin and technology systems.
Right. Yep.
You know what I mean?
Preach.
Yeah.
You know, the church is years behind in the same way that Kevin.
Yes.
Congrats to Kevin.
Yeah.
He just got a MySpace.
Ooh,
We're
thank
super
you.
excited.
Is that
Yes.
even still a thing?
I don't know.
I don't think
Ed
It
looking
is.
for the thing?
Yeah. It's still
But
out
it's a
there. What do you
great
mean? I just
metaphor.
got it.
Yeah.
It's not new?
Forgive me for asking
Kevin
Edwin.
Dixon 777.
Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
Actually,
MySpace evangelist.
666, but let's not tell anybody.
Yeah. Reverend Kevin.
Yeah.
So anyway, I
Yeah,
think
that's
a great
really
question. What would
interesting.
you say?
I would agree with you. Yeah.
That's too easy.
I do also wonder if, like, there's just a lot of things, like, you can look back to, you know, the 60s, 70s, 80s, and say that there were things that the church was on the wrong side of history with.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot about what that would be like for us.
Yeah.
You know?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, because there's certain cultural things that are not going to go away. They're
Right.
not going to.
No.
They're not going to be reversed.
Right.
And so, not that, you know, I mean, whether you condone those things or not, it's still in how we treat people. You know, how we treat image bearers and what the mission of God actually is and how it is carried out in this particular context. And by context, I mean location and also time and culture and, you know, even the social location of different people, you know, like it's just, there's so many mixed contexts for that now. And because of the way the world has become smaller, thanks to the internet and technology, like you can't just say, I live in Middle Tennessee and this is how it is here.
Right.
It's like, no, we have visibility of how people are living in all different parts of the world and how they're being treated by their governments and what governments are supporting those governments. And like, there's just so many layers to it. And I just think it's so complicated. And so I ask myself that question a lot, like what side of history will I be remembered on?
Just the other part of this that happened in the 70s that I'm
glad we have an authoritative voice.
That I think is
really helpful.
worth discussing is that the mainline denominations became more accepting of cultural norms. And there was this movement away from that by the evangelicals, which drained a lot of the mainline denominations who were trying to feed the poor, trying to do things that were socially, and the social gospel raised its head in a way that the response was reformers, like people who were like militant. No, this is an intellectual exercise. This is something you intellectually ascend to. And I think that was the chasm that ended up happening. And the church, the evangelical church, the independent church, the people on the other end of this spectrum pulled a lot of people out of that idea that it's actually you embody the gospel. You just have to intellectually ascend to it. I grew up in that environment because the dichotomy was in my own home. We went to a church that talked about what the truth was, but we never lived that way. We talked about it all the time. I mean, I learned how to curse at home, swear, like, but if I ever sweared in front of my dad, he would say, "Where did you learn that?" And you'd be a little dumbfounded in your answer. So you never said him.
Self-awareness anyway?
School, church. But anyway, all that I think is a big part of it. And so it entrenched itself. I saw this happen as I went to school and stuff with theology. Theology became the most important test, litmus test. And if you were into the reformers, you were a 5-point Calvinist. If you were into Wesleyanism, you were an Arminian, and there ensued the battle, and a lot of it had to do with the way you viewed God and the way you viewed people. And somewhere along the line, somebody said, I think this is where we are now. I'm not sure that's the question anybody's asking anymore. So something shifted, I would say in the 2010s, that people woke up to the idea that God was actually pursuing them. And it matters that God actually is for us. Whereas prior to that, God was not. Now
Seemed that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, sorry.
But then you pull the lens back, like
coming to Timmons.
Globally, and you read things about how like there's actual spiritual revival happening.
Oh yeah.
In
the strangest places.
Well, yeah, Americans are notorious these days for saying the church is dying and people are leaving the church and all that. Well, it is in the white church.
Yeah.
But it's in the poorer, non-white parts of the world, it's exploding. And it's exploding with Pentecostalism, which is evangelical, right?
Yeah, right.
And kind of. But so it's just interesting because we're so focused on what we see right in front of us.
Shift
but
is taken on.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know what to do with any of that.
Yeah, well, I don't know if we have to do anything with it. So what is salvation, Mike?
Salvation is making sure that your Mother's Day plans meet the expectation
of your mother.
Wow. And never say, which I said last year, and this is true, and this is very dumb. And this fits the words that we employed last episode.
Okay.
On the one we didn't do?
The one
No. The one we did.
Okay,
the one we did do. The one that shall not be named.
Yes.
Shall now live in infamy.
Yeah.
Buried.
Yes.
Buried.
in the archives.
But I'd said, because our kids are, functioning adults at this point. I'm like, hey, it's their job to honor their mother. I have my mother that I'm going to honor. I didn't marry my mother. And
good to know.
Yeah. Well,
write that one down.
Check.
Yeah.
Brad's happy to know that.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing was that hurt my dear wife's feelings, because I was like, well, the kids should honor you. I'm honoring my mother, and you're honoring your mother. You're not my mom. And that shouldn't have said that.
No.
Shouldn't have said that.
Yeah. She's the mother of your children.
Well, there are children. They're only mine when they're in trouble.
Wow.
Even I turned away on that one. He went too far. He took that one way too far. No, he took that too far. Yeah.
That's funny.
You come out smelling like roses always.
I don't know about that.
Yes. So on that note, salvation is honoring your wife, who is the mother of your children.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Embodying, yes.
That's salvation.
Yep.
There it is.
That is embodied participation in new creation.
All right. Well, if you got anything out of this today, thank you. We
did.
If you want to hear the other one,
it's going to cost you.
It's
going to cost you.
Venmo.
Yes.
Yeah.
Venmo was
Edwin.
something.
Yeah.
Patreon subscribers.
Holy Post Plus.
yeah, that's funny.
There it is. That would be a really.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Journey Now. If for some bizarre reason you liked it, Help us spread the word by leaving a review and sharing it on your socials. Journey Now is a production of Journey Church in Brentwood, Tennessee. Edwin Rivera III produces the show and fixes all the guests slurping, gum chewing, coughing, and other annoying sounds. Randy Hansen provides technical assistance, even though he denies it. Grant Opperman edits Journey Now and intervenes whenever necessary to tell the crew that you can't say that. Special shout out to dear listener Brad Erre and dear YouTube watcher Seth Erre. If there's anyone else who makes it through each week, we're so sorry, and thank you too.